Hi, welcome to Intro to AutoCAD for Theater Sound. You are looking at the default screen for AutoCAD 2026 for Mac. I am running a MacBook Pro M4 from 2024. The operating system is Sequoia 1573 and it's January 2026. I'm including this information for two reasons. One, your AutoCAD might look different than this if you are using a Windows machine or a different software version than 2026. Autodesk releases a new one every year and will allow you to access older year versions if your machine is not capable of running the most recent build. Two, if you are watching this in the future and it looks weirdly outdated and wrong, check the channel to see if there's an updated version of this lecture that is more relevant to you. That being said, nothing we are going to be doing here is going to break AutoCAD and use the latest, sexiest, hardest features. Today is going to be about lines and circles and rectangles. But first, some housekeeping that is based on my personal workflow and how things will look moving forward. First thing I want to say, your left hand is your keyboard hand, and your right hand is your mouse hand. You should be drafting with a keyboard and a mouse setup because doing it on a trackpad is incredibly inefficient and weird to zoom in and out with. Is it possible to do on a trackpad? Sure. Some of you won't listen to me and will do this on a trackpad anyway. I can't stop you from being wrong, but I can make this face at you. Okay, next thing is that I am going to remove a lot of these toolbars. I learned AutoCAD from a technical director back in the medieval times, and the first thing he made us do was get rid of all this stuff on the sides, because rote memorization of key commands will speed up your workflow significantly. I'm going to turn off this window on the left. If you want it back, it's called Tool Sets. Window Tool Sets. Goodbye. I'm going to turn off the top toolbar as well. Window Toolbar. Goodbye. I'm going to expand the layers list. They started absurdly small by default, and when you open up any architectural drawing, say of, a theater, it's going to have many, many layers to go through. So I'm going to show layer list and drag it down over here by properties. At the moment, there's just the 0 layer, but it gets much more complicated than that. We are going to go down to the bottom toolbar. I'm going to turn off the grid because I don't like it. I think it adds a lot of visual noise and I would rather be staring into the black void. Next, I will be deactivating dynamic input. It follows your cursor around, suggesting commands. I find it annoying and distracting. The rest of the toolbar I tend to leave alone. On the command bar, which is this bar at the bottom center, click on the little face and there's a drop-down for input settings. I am also going to turn off autocomplete and autocorrect. Object Snap Mode. Object snaps will activate grip points within lines and circles, like, say, the exact middle of any line or the side of a circle. If you right-click on this square on the bottom right bar that says Object Snaps, you can look at the setting options. Here is the default. I'm going to click out of this and type OS Mode 255, which changes the default settings to something easier to work with. Here is the difference in what that has changed. You only have to change OS Mode 255 once on a machine, and it will stay there. Some of the computers in the studio are probably already there. I usually don't think about object snaps that much until it feels wrong, because this is a set-it-and-forget-it kind of setting. I was told a long time ago that 255 is the good one, and I have to say I agree because I am used to it. Okay, so now you know why my layout looks like this. Some layout vocab for you all. This big black void in which you will be drawing is called Modelspace. It is an infinite canvas. You will spend most of your time in this area until you are ready to start printing relevant portions of your drawing to share. At the bottom here, AutoCAD auto-generates 2 additional views labeled Layout 1 and Layout 2. These will take you into Paperspace, which represents a regular 8.5 by 11-inch piece of printer paper. We will talk about Paperspace layouts and how to use them next week. If with an errant click you accidentally end up on a white sheet of paper, I want you to return to the drawing on Modelspace, down here. Let's run through some basic commands. Spacebar is your go, like in QLab. The Enter key also works, but for speed when typing, the spacebar is just easier to hit. Drawing units. DD units. Spacebar. This opens up the drawing units submenu. It will default to decimal units. Most of the time, I will want to make sure that I'm drawing an architectural imperial 16th inch because that's what we use in America, because freedom. Another argument for the mouse, navigation. Going to open up a drawing for the Healy Theater. Looks like this, and when I want to zoom in on, say, the ground plan, I will use the scroll wheel on my mouse. Doing it on a trackpad is clunkier. You can hold the Option key and pray that you're in the right spot and that you have the correct sensitivity. Press down on the scroll wheel button to pan. The trackpad will pan with 2 fingers, which I find easy to do accidentally. Here's some relevant key commands for navigation. Z is for zoom, Z spacebar. Your zoom sub-options are all, center, dynamic, extents, previous, scale, window, and object. The ones that I use are extents and object. Z spacebar, E spacebar. Extents zooms out to the edges of everything you have drawn currently, like a max zoom out so you can see everything. Z spacebar, O spacebar. Zoom object will zoom in and center everything you've selected. Let's say I want to focus in on Cat 5 in the Healy. I will select some objects to put on the edges of my window, like this pipe and this pipe, maybe this label. One more zoom that I think you might like is making a window with your mouse. Z spacebar. Then make your own bounding box. If you would like to explore the other zoom options, give them a try and see what they might do for you, or read up on the Autodesk online manual. So let's go back to a blank AutoCAD file and start with the line drawing command. L spacebar. Click anywhere on your drawing with your mouse where you want the line to begin. As you drag your cursor around, there is a little info bar that tells you how long your line is getting. Since I changed DD units earlier to architectural, it is showing me in increments of 1/16 inches. You can see it in decimal inches if you changed your DD units back to decimal. Let's pretend I want to make a 1-foot line. With some mental math, you should know that 1 foot equals 12 inches. We are working with inches here. So the command would be L spacebar 12 spacebar. That made a 12-inch line, but the line command is still active if you wanted to keep going with additional lines. You can either press spacebar again or the escape key. I will admit I use the escape key for some muscle memory reason, but an extra spacebar is faster. Alternatively, and this only works if you're set to architectural units, you can do L spacebar 1 apostrophe spacebar spacebar. So I have 2 12-inch lines here. Let's say I want to measure and confirm that this is indeed a 12-inch line and I didn't mess that up. I use DLI, that stands for dimension linear. You use it to measure straight lines across. So, DLI spacebar. Mouse click from this end to this end. And it will confirm that yes, from here to here is a total of 12 inches. That's the line command L and how to measure DLI. Let's say I wanted to change how long this line is. One option to do that is the Lengthen command, which is LEN. LEN spacebar. There's some options to LEN. I'm going to run through them all. DE or delta. You can choose how much you want to add or subtract. Here is an example of that. LEN spacebar. DE spacebar minus 10 spacebar. This subtracts 10 inches to whatever line I click on. Spacebar one more time or escape key to exit. Let's add that back in and make it 12 inches again. LEN spacebar. DE spacebar. 10 spacebar. Click on that and we're back. Okay, next lengthen option is %. LEN spacebar. P spacebar. 120 spacebar. This would add 20% of whatever the total length line you click on is, which if I drag my dimension line over, that would make it 14.4 inches. So 20% of a 12-inch line is 2.4 according to computers and math. I did bust out a calculator to confirm that I was thinking about this correctly, and yes, I am thinking about this correctly. Obviously, I don't think about this very often, and I don't use percentage. Let's do the same thing, but in reverse. LEN spacebar, P spacebar, 75 spacebar. This would remove 25% of this line, which is currently 14.4 inches, making it 10.8. Because math! I don't care much for this particular style because I'd prefer to lengthen to a whole number of my choice. And the percentages method doesn't always work for my brain, but it's there if you like to think that way. Next lengthen option, I'm actually going to skip total because that's the one I like. Here's one more that I don't use called dynamic. LEN spacebar, DY spacebar. Click on the line you want to change, and now you can alter the length manually with your mouse cursor. I do not like this one because it is not precise. You might as well just draw a new line if you're going to do it manually. Okay, here's a good one in my opinion. Total, LEN spacebar, T spacebar. From here, you just say how long you want the line. If I want to subtract and end up with 8 inches, I say 8. If I want to add and end up with 15 inches, I just say 15. This one feels like a lot of less mental math to me personally, so if you ever see me flying through this command real fast, it's because my muscle memory is used to this one specifically. Trim and extend. These are commands that I use frequently that I think sound fairly self-explanatory. So I have my various lines that I have drawn, but I want this line to be shortened based on where it meets up with this other line. That's trim. TR, spacebar. There's some additional trim options that I'm not going to detail in this video because I never use them. Google trim AutoCAD and you can pull up the Autodesk help article and try to figure out what all these extra options are. Or you could be me and just use regular trim because I'm not currently trying to do something fancier. Extend is the opposite effect. Let's say I wanted this line longer and to stop where it intersects with this line over here. EX, spacebar. Then highlight the line I want longer. So this is how default trim extend works as of AutoCAD 2021. I learned AutoCAD probably on 2007, so I prefer the older methodology. You can 100% leave the default. I'm just old, and I'm showing you why mine will look different. Trim extend mode, spacebar, 0. Default is 1. That's the only alternative. I just like 0. So that is another set it and forget it option like OS mode 255. It will remain like this for me for every new AutoCAD session. What did that do? Let's look at extend. EX, spacebar. Instead of interpreting the behavior automatically, AutoCAD is waiting for me to set the boundary. I have to click on this line to tell all relevant lines to stop over here. It adds an extra step that allows me to control and set the boundary. That is what it will look like on my screen. TR, spacebar. Trim works the same way. I have to tell AutoCAD my specific trim line before it does anything. So that's lines. Let's do rectangles. REC spacebar. Click on where you want the rectangle to start and click on where you want it to end. That is a random rectangle floating in space with no specific length settings. If I wanted to make a specifically sized rectangle, you can do it by area, like 120 square inches within a 5 by 10 rectangle. If you're mathematically minded, then you could try this one out, but I don't use that one. You can do it with dimensions, which makes more sense to me. REC, spacebar, D, spacebar, 20. My length setting will be 20. And my width will be 12. And I'll end up with a rectangle that looks like this. Let's measure it with DLI. DLI spacebar, click here and here. DLA spacebar, click here and here. So I've proven that we have a 20 by 12 rectangle. To be perfectly honest, I don't do it that way. I make a 20-inch line horizontally and a vertical line at 12 inches. Then I rectangle manually from here to here. Which brings me to our next command, move, M, spacebar. I'm going to select this rectangle and move it off of these reference lines that I drew. I'm going to select them with a bounding box and erase them with E, spacebar. The delete key also works, but it makes you move your hand away from the main section of the keyboard more. All right, moving on to circles. That is C, spacebar. Click for the center of the circle and expand. That was a random circle with no specific measurement, but let's do one with a radius of 6 inches. C, spacebar. Click for center. 6, spacebar. Let's measure to confirm. DLI from here to here. And we get 12 inches across because radius is from the center to the outside. You can also switch to diameter mode if you prefer to think of it that way. C, spacebar. D for diameter. Spacebar. 12, spacebar. Same circle, different method. I'm gonna be honest here, I will mix up radius and diameter frequently, so I don't draw circles like this. I make a line first. Let's do a 10-inch diameter this time. L, spacebar. 10, spacebar. Spacebar again, or escape to exit. I'm going to zoom in and highlight this line. You notice that there's grip points on both ends and at the exact center. I'm going to make a circle that starts from the center of the line and hits at one of those ends. C, spacebar. Hit the center grip, which is represented by a triangle, and drag outwards to the end anchor. Quick measurement. This is the same 12-inch diameter circle as the others. Different way of drawing it that I find myself doing somewhat often. E, spacebar, is for erase, and I will select these and hit spacebar one more time. So let's talk about text. The command text straight up just makes a single line of text. T-E-X-T, spacebar. From here, it asks where you want to start the text. Let's say the center of the circle. If I sort of hover on the outside with my cursor, a grip point for the center of the circle will appear. I can now click on the center node. Next, it's going to ask, how tall do you want this text? I can drag it out manually or give it a numerical value of 5. My text will say 0, 0. I'm going somewhere with this, promise. It looks like a little guy with funny eyes, actually. Anyhow, select that new text object and you'll see additional parameters in the Write Properties window. Don't worry about colors or layers for transparency right now. Those are not important for the purpose of this drawing. You can change the contents here in case I wanted 0, 0 to be WTF, but I would actually like to keep it a number, so let's go back to 0, 0. I actually am over here going to change the justification from left to middle center. Now my number sits in the exact center of the circle. Okay, so from here, I'm going to make a vertical line, random length. I'm going to move it so that the center of my new line hits the left edge of the circle. If you are having trouble finding these nodes, then make sure you are in OS mode 255. They are not active by default, and I think that they are very helpful. If you've ever seen a sound system diagram, which you should have seen a couple last term, you might recognize this as a mic symbol. With a circle and a line at the side, we have started the standard graphical symbol for a microphone. It's got a number in the center for a mic count. Let's continue our mic symbol by cleaning up the lines, which I had made a random length that was too long. L, spacebar. Find the top quadrant mode. Click there, drag somewhere past the vertical line. Click and escape. Do the same thing below. L, spacebar. Click the quadrant, drag it over. Click and escape. Now we can use the trim command. TR, spacebar. Select the boundaries, which is my reference lines, spacebar. Cut there at the top, and cut there at the bottom. I can select these lines and delete them because I don't need them anymore. So there's a mic symbol, random size. Not the exact size I want you doing for homework, but just showing you a methodology. If I wanted to continue with the rest of the mic symbol, I would add text labels. I'm going to blow through this real quick to show you where we're going with this. Drafting in AutoCAD microphones. These are some symbols for diagrams. You have to learn this because I'm making you. This is a time-lapse for microphone. Microphone symbols. Oh yeah. Anyway, let's go back to text. We were dealing with single-line text, but there is also multi-line text, which creates a text box that you can scale. When I learned, the command was mtext, but I just figured out now that it's just T. So you may see me use mtext because of muscle memory. I'll try to use both. Drag the first corner, then drag outward to the outer corner. Doesn't matter a whole lot because you can adjust it later. The text ends up fairly small due to AutoCAD defaults, so let's move on to styles. The styles window can be accessed with ST, spacebar. In a brand new AutoCAD file, you'll just see annotative and standard. Don't worry about annotative styles, we won't be doing anything with those anytime soon. On a Mac, you will default to the font Arial. It's probably different on Windows, I can't confirm, but I do see this one a lot. I personally like Arial because it's a clean sans serif font. However, if you look here, the text height will default to 0. I'm going to make a new style, call it Sarah, make the default text height 1 inch. And I'll change the font to something else. Comic Sans, because this isn't real. So let's also make it bold too for no reason. I'm going to select this piece of text that we made before and change its style in the properties bar. Every text box we've made so far is in standard Arial. That automatically changes the height and the font to our new style. When you collaborate on drawings with others, you'll inherit the styles that they've been drafting with. They get embedded in the file. Here's an example from a show I did last June, Color Purple at the Goodman. There are tons of styles added from the technical directors, the scenic designer, other scenic designers, and I'm probably in there too. You may want multiple styles for different purposes, like that one is the right size for your dimensions, one is just for your notes to self, and one that's for your title block, etc. If you work in standard, the settings may not carry over if you copy-paste into another drawing, so just make your own and use the font of your choice that isn't crazy and hard to read. I use Arial. My TD professor liked to use Romantic because it was, quote, elegant. TTS Standards appears to be 1/8 inch Arial regular. So let's review real quick. We just talked about how to make lines, rectangles, circles, text, and multiline text. Those are all the components you need to make a system block diagram. Let's travel back in time to fall term class 2. I provided some simple line diagrams and asked you to make some pictorial diagrams based on them. I'm going to recreate this one on video. It is 2 mics into an analog board, outputting to a 2-channel amp and a pair of passive loudspeakers. It's lines, circles, and text. Let's start a brand new file. Gonna set my DD units to architectural. Going to create a style and call it line diagram, Arial font and 1 inch text height. My text box will say purpose, and I will change it later. Going to make a line that is 20 inches horizontal and 2 inches vertical. I can connect that using polar tracking, which adds these helpful reference lines. I want it to basically be a rectangle. I'm going to click on purpose and change it to middle center justify. This is a geometry trick that I use quite often. I'm going to make a reference line in this rectangle from corner to corner. Going to click on purpose and drag it from the center of the text box to the center of the diagonal reference line. Now I'm going to delete that reference line. And there we have text centered in the exact center of that box. Take that whole thing and copy paste it. Change the text to make and model by double-clicking on it. Select the make and model rectangle and drag it by one of the bottom corners to stack it right on top of purpose. You can delete the top rectangle lines. Those were just for keeping things lined up. Okay, that's the top of our standard device block. 20 inches horizontal, 2 inches vertical. Let's start the bottom portion. Add another vertical line. This will vary in size depending on how many inputs and outputs your device has. But for this one, let's go another 14 inches down. I can again use polar tracking to line up by dragging my cursor over here and downwards. Or you could make another 20-inch horizontal line and 14-inch vertical. Let's add a new text box that is labeled Inputs. Justify that to middle left. Either make a new text box that says Outputs, or I'm going to copy-paste Inputs and just change the contents. Going to show you a new command now that we have a relevant reason to use it. Offset. Oh, spacebar. From the side of the device block, I want my text lined up consistently without overlapping on the edge. I am going to give an offset value of 1 inch. It will create an identical line 1 inch away from the original. This also works on circles and rectangles, but we don't need to do that right now. I'm going to do that on both sides and on the top. With those new temporary reference lines, I'm going to take my text box anchors and set them at the intersection. Now they line up fairly nicely to the sides and from the top. You can delete the top reference line, we're done with that one. I'm going to offset the top one more time with a value of 2. This new line will be for my input and output labels, as in input channel 1 or main left out. Depends on your equipment and what they call it and what you need to use. Let's add a channel 2, and for reasons of spacing that I have predetermined, let's offset this reference line down by a value of 7 inches. Going to copy-paste the input and output text boxes and line them up with the center of these reference lines. Relabel them 1 and 2 for now. You will change it later whenever you need. Point is that it's nicely aligned in advance. And that is a basic device block. Let's throw together another mic symbol, but this time with a size that lines up better with this specific size device block. Make a circle with a 3-inch diameter. Create a single line text box with 1-inch height. Label it number sign. Set the justification to middle center. Move the text number into the center of the circle. Make some multi-line text that says purpose on top and make and model on bottom. Justify it middle right. Line it up with the side of the circle. With the Move tool, select the text and move it over 1 inch. Make a vertical line from the top of the circle to the bottom. Grab that line and move it over to the left side of the circle. And there we have a mic symbol. On the other end, we need speaker symbols. Going to start with a vertical line 3 inches tall. Add a horizontal that is 1.5 inches to the right. Go back up 3 and connect it at the top to make a rectangle. From the center of the right line, I'm going to make another horizontal line that is 3 inches to the right. This is a reference line that I will delete later. Off in the void, I'm going to make a 6-inch tall vertical line. Going to take that midpoint of the same line and move it to the end of my reference line. From the side rectangle, I'm going to meet the top and the bottom to make a trapezoid shape with 2 angled lines. Make a circle, 1-inch radius, at the center of the reference line. Make a single line text box with a number symbol. This is for speaker count, much like with the mic count on the other side. Make it middle center justified and place it in the center of the circle. You can now delete the reference line. Let's add the labels. T, spacebar for multi-line text. Make a bounding box of any size and correct it later. Purpose on top, make and model on the bottom. Resize the text box as needed. Middle left justify and anchor it to the edge of the speaker symbol at the very center. Using the Move tool, shove it over by 1 inch. So depending if you're using passive speakers or active speakers, you'll need an additional triangle. Passive speakers look like this. This one's done. However, if you're using active speakers, they will have this extra triangle. I just keep 2 flavors handy. You can copy-paste and add and delete the lines as required. And there we have 2 speaker blocks. That's your homework. I want you to draw these things from scratch. Turn it in to me in DWG format. And if you know Paperspace and title blocks and block attributes already, don't worry about it. We will talk about Paperspace and blocks next week. I just want these 3 basic components drawn. They don't need to line up pretty, just practice the tools and make these things. For the purpose of this video, I'm going to turn these things that we just drew into a diagram based on Fall Term Class 2 pictorials. Here I go with the time lapse. I realized I had to do another one of these time-lapse things. Aw, yeah. Can't use copyrighted music. I forgot to buy myself a kazoo. I thought that would be pretty funny, but I forgot. It's very late and I'm feeling kinda loopy. This one goes out to AutoCAD. I'm not very good at hand drafting. Neither are you, probably. But I don't need to, 'cause I have AutoCAD. to make diagrams in a time lapse. Yeah. Ta-da! System block diagram. By the end of term, you're going to make me one of these. See you Tuesday. Do your homework.